the privilege of looking at another of the songs that you and Flora Jean wrote. Which one are we looking at for this podcast?
We're looking at Through the Valley.
Excellent.
When I think about this song and why Flora Jean and I wrote it, I am reminded of so many hymn writers who have written songs as a result of sorrow in their lives. Mm-hmm. A lot of people had the idea with Flora Jean and me. And I want to post, when I mentioned Flora Jean, she's been in heaven now for 2.5 years. But to me, she's still alive. And I think about her like she's still right here.
Right.
When I see her picture, I thank the Lord for her. And I listen to her music. I've been listening to her recording and how she interprets things there. And I said, I'm reminded about even my daughter, Shelley. When Shelley did one of her albums called Back to Back Christmas. A great thing. I told Shelley when I heard that, I said, Shelley, it's great to know you, let alone think you're my daughter. And I have to think now with my wife. I say, Flora Jean, it was great to know you, let alone think you were my wife, that I actually had you to help me in the ministry God gave to me. Well, that is true. So when I mentioned Flora Jean, I want you to know that to me, she's still here. There are several of these things. But the first one that comes to me is Ron Hamilton's song, Rejoice in the Lord, that he wrote when he lost his eye to cancer. Then there is Horatio Spafford, and the loss of his daughters at sea, that birth it is well. And that's how Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And when you heard the church bells on Christmas Day, after several disasters in his life, and we'll talk about the disasters, he wrote, I heard the bells on Christmas Day. And then I couldn't help but think about Shelley Hamilton. Use the second stanza of my joy will come in the morning to comfort her heart after her son Jonathan took his own life. She finally wrote a book about it. It took her 8 years to do it. The book's called Always Only Good. By the way, if you don't have that book, I would suggest you get it. Get it from Majesty Music, or you can get it on Amazon or several other places. I would recommend Christian books because they're cheap. The prices are usually cheaper on Christian books. But this, Shelley explains what it's like to live with a person who has mental problems and how you work with them. And she goes into all the details and how it took her actually 8 years before she could finally bring herself to write it. But it's a great book, and I'd like to wholeheartedly recommend it.
There's a link in the description to the book where they can get a hold of it.
Good. Yes, there is. Good. Okay. Sorrows and losses are something that everyone experiences in his life, and it is not these things that make or break us. Our response is what the Lord is looking for, and whether or not we are going to trust Him in spite of the grief we experience.
Yes.
Flora Jean and I experienced it several times during the 68 years we had together. We wrote Through the Valley when the most devastating sorrow happened to us as we were in our 40s. It came as a complete surprise to us. And this song was our response to something we could not understand. There are some sorrows that come to you that you know you've caused them by yourself. Either through an unwise decision or your unwillingness to listen to God or the advice of other people. You have no one to blame but yourself.
Right.
I have had more of my share of that kind. The one I am referring to was completely unexpected. Looking back, I might have done something a little differently, but it wasn't that I had not tried. I just didn't expect this one. However, the song expresses either way the valley of weeping, the sorrow and the pain we felt so deeply. The trouble that came with it, the trials that accompanied it, the darkening clouds all around and the lowering shadows were breaking our hearts. You will read elsewhere in the book how we turned it over to the Lord. In this book, we talk about it some. But this song was the culmination of our determination to keep trusting in the Lord.
Good.
as you start looking through the book that's going to go along with this, Simply Garlock,
good.
cream of our crop.
Oh, good. Yes.
Because she was a country girl and I was a city boy, okay? And this is, but so many of those songs talk about how we were trusting the Lord, and that's why we wrote the songs.
Good.
I should mention here that my older sister Eunice had sent me a tract that gave me some ideas for the song. We found out later the person who claimed ownership of that song could not even be trusted.
Oh,
so
wow.
I made sure the words were mine, and I didn't borrow them from somebody else.
Good.
Flora Jean's help on the appropriate music will make the song speak to hearts. It is a combination of simplicity and profundity. The bass pedal tone all the way through the stanza and the first two measures of the chorus are a musical description of how persistent and how long that sorrow and pain can last. If you've had it, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yes.
And the music, we wanted that. If we put that in deliberately. Flora Jean felt it, and I felt it. We felt it together. The tenor line contributes to that same effect, but it's harmonizing with the soprano in several places contrastingly adds to the painting of the words in measure 1, 3, 5, 7, again in measures 11, 15, and in the chorus. We did it deliberately, changed it in the other parts to get it so it wasn't too boring. You didn't stay in the pain and the sorrow too long.
Sure.
Flora Jean also added contrary motion between the soprano and bass in measure 6 going into measure 7. Then in 11, 13 to 14, and in 14 to 15. She put that was Flora Jean's work.
Excellent.
There is also contrary motion twice between the tenor and soprano in measures 9 to highlight wherever God leads, and again in measure 13 and 14 to bring out the fact that the Lord can give amazing comfort in any situation.
Right. Good.
It is also fascinating that the tenor moves parallel with the soprano in measure 13 to magnify just the words "can give." Can you explain that how that works out? How she did that?
So as you see there at the end of measure 13, on the word Lord, the tenor and soprano have gone to the same note, though an octave apart, and then they split and run in parallel there as the sopranos are on the A flat, and then you'll see the tenors on the G flat there. You'll see they're both moving in parallel. It's over an octave, but it's a third, so with the octave in there, it's a tenth. But it has that sound of the parallel thirds, and it's a very soothing, pleasing sound. So it further illustrates the idea of comfort that the Lord gives us.
I'll mention that in a second, that we have proof.
Exactly.
We've experienced it, so we do have proof.
Good.
But then there's also a subtle shift into E flat minor going into measure 7 for the words by his hand. Isn't that interesting? It shifts into E minor there. We've been in 5 flats, but the key of E flat minor is also in 5 flats. I guess a lot of folks don't realize that. Can you explain that for folks?
Well, the key
How
signature,
the minor and the major are related?
Absolutely. And related is an excellent way to think of it because they share the key signature, just as you and Flora Jean shared the last name of Garlock. So also key signatures will share. Our keys will share the same key signature. C major and A minor have the same key signature. And in the major scale, whatever that 6th note of the scale is, that is the relative minor where they will share the same key signature. And then if you start on that 6th note of the major scale and just go all the way through the major scale, you are doing the natural minor of that scale, and they share the exact same key signature. So here, exactly, a minor third apart from the major. If you go down a minor third,
Yep.
I like to say 3 half steps and 3 letter names because every so often you're getting into the inharmonics. You're not quite sure if you should call it a flat or sharp.
When you get into 5 flats like this, it's a little complicated.
Yes, it is.
And if you go into 6 flats, it's even more complicated.
Even more so, exactly.
But that's the way it fits for by his hand, and that he intends and are all blessings. Notice how it fits everything. Same idea is done a different way in the chorus at measure 14. There's a wide spread between the voices, with the bass voice going down to the low F to portray the comfort that the Lord gives us as we have the proof of it. Isn't that interesting? It got spread way out. That was Flora Jean again. I hear that in her piano playing on her album, where she's way down at the bottom, and so a lot of times her right hand's crossing over and playing the low notes that are down on the low part. You just, unless you look at the music or watch her, you couldn't believe what she was doing. Okay. Then in measures 14 and 15, there's the same subtle temporary shift in the E flat minor, for his grace can give strength for each day. So she used that twice, one time for by his hand, and now here she uses it for his grace can give strength.
Good.
You know that she was thinking words. As she and I went over the words, in fact, I remember as we were listening sometimes to some of our recordings when she and I were traveling together, and she'd be listening to some of our songs, and she'd say, "Boy, we had some beautiful words there, didn't we?" I said, "Yeah." And the way you said them, honey, was the way it needed to be said musically, and I appreciate you doing that part for me. There are many other subtle things that could be commented on, but I hope the song and this explanation will help you to see the heart that both Flora Jean and I had for the message that this song seeks to communicate.